So good afternoon to all of you. As you can see, my title is Magnetic Fermions in Future Data Storage. How many of you have heard about fermions? Names fermions? Anyone? Okay. So we come to fermion. What is fermion? But going to before going to fermion, so I'll just give you introduction about what are these magnetics state you can see. So my talk is based on magnetism only. Okay. So mostly it's like magnetism. Okay, and okay. Okay, so why? Because there is a time lag. Okay, why you should look beyond silicon? Okay, my talk was for data storage. Okay, so if you see the title of the talk is magnetic fermion for future data storage. Okay, so data storage, when we say data storage, we are mainly using this silicon based transistor. Whatever your phone or a PC, everywhere means almost everywhere we are using this silicon based transistor for our data storage. Only have magnetic hard disk HDD is very rare nowadays. Okay, because speed is low, means many problems. But if you go to the next slide, why we should look beyond silicons? Okay, because it has also some demerits. The number of transistors, this is Moore's law, means it was stated 50 years back actually, and still it holds. The number of transistors in a dense integrated circuit doubles in every 2 years. Okay, so whatever the memory requirement we have today, after 2 years, maybe we need double of data on this thing. And then also transistor, so we cannot means how much dense will make it. Okay, and there is a limit, and also we cannot reduce the size after certain limit. So we have to look beyond silicon, whether we can look something beyond silicon or not. There was one solution about this, this is means how we are using number of transistors with years. Okay. So what is the alternative option? Alternative option is like this spintronics, but we use instead of electrons like property, we use the spin of the electrons. Okay. In the spintronics, what we have option? We have option of this magnetic hard disks. Okay. One is magnetic hard disks, and the other is spin valve name. Have you heard about? I'll come little bit about that. And there also we just use it as data as a read head or writing head. It's not as like a data storage. Magnetic read head. How many of you know magnetic read head? Like in your tape recorder or somewhere, whatever you read the data. So that is actually made of spin valve. I will come a little bit. So, but we are not using that technology as a for the data storage. Okay, that is just we are using for like reading or writing your data into the magnetic hard disk, and which is like ferromagnetic versus magnetic domain based. Okay. So before going to that Squarnian's part, so I will just give you some introduction about what are this magnetic state we know so far. Okay. I think all of you know about all these three: ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic, and ferrimagnetic. Okay, and the distinction between these three I have mentioned also. Ferromagnetic, all spin pointing in one direction. Antiferromagnetic, there will be two sublattices with equal movement, and here ferromagnetic, two magnetic sublattices. But the sublattices crystallographically they are always different. That's why one sublattice has higher movement, the other sublattice has lower movement. But here crystallographically they are same, but magnetically they are opposite. Okay, so this is ferrimagnetic. So what else we can get? That those are all are collinear. Collinear means they all point in parallel random. Okay. Here you can see this is also antiferromagnetic, but these are not collinear. You see they are here in this if you take one of the triangle, this is the triangular antiferromagnetic. If you take just one triangle, this is means 120 degree so they connected by the angle between the two spin is 120 degree. Okay. This is a very special case. So actually this if you know this I could have put that one. If you have three spin, okay, you have consider you have a blackboard. Okay, you have a board. I will just show you a little bit. You just consider a triangle. Okay, you put this one spin here and one spin parallel to each other. Now let's consider the interaction between them is antiferromagnetic. Okay, so in that case I have to put this is here. Then how I should put here to satisfy the antiferromagnetic interaction? Can I put it here? The interaction between them is such that it should be antiferromagnetic always, because that defines what is the distance between the two spin. That defines what would be the interaction. Now I cannot put this spin here. If I put these are antiferromagnetic, but this is ferromagnetic. So in this case, what happens? System goes to that state actually. They all can't if it is like a higher spin state, it's like a little bit higher spin half, then we won't get any order. But if it is like a little bit higher spin state, we get an ordering state, and this is the triangular antiferromagnetic. Which means all the three spin will connect, so that means the system will go to the lower state. Also, okay, this is something is going here. So if you have two magnetic sublattices here. I told you in ferrimagnetic case there must be two crystallographic sublattices. This two two manganese atoms sitting, but they are sitting in a different place, different atmosphere. Okay. So this here I have put red and blue, two manganese atoms, which are ferromagnetic in case of this material. Manganese itself is antiferromagnetic. Forget about that. But here it is ferromagnetic. Now let's the interaction between these two is antiferromagnetic. Okay. But interaction between these two also red is also antiferromagnetic. Then so it cannot system cannot satisfy something like that. So it also goes to canted magnetic state. So these are all collinear, non-collinear magnetic state we know. Okay, so far. Then so if you go little bit higher step, so it's not like your magnetic here. So you consider always 2 or 3 spin as a one unit cell, magnetic unit cell, not crystallographic unit cell. Here I can consider this 2 spin. But here, magnetic unit cell, okay, what I tell now, this is much larger than a crystallographic unit cell. Okay, what is the lattice parameter of a crystal? Something around maximum is 1 nanometer. Okay, it falls around less than 1 nanometer always. Okay, in most of the time. But here you see the spins are arranged such a way that it goes long, maybe 100 nanometer, 200 nanometer, like in one order. Like you heard about spin wave? Spin wave, have you heard about? No? Okay. Okay. You see, let my spins, spins are arranged in such that my spin is propagating in x direction. Okay. Now, propagating in x direction means this is a helical magnetic stripe which is propagating along the x direction. But my spins which are like in this helix, they will align perpendicular to the propagation direction. Okay. And if you take that, then it will have both, like here is z, this is y, this is x direction. Okay. Then it will have both like z and x direction or y direction. Okay. Here actually perpendicular means y direction. Okay. Now if you take actually what is the total z component of the spin, it will propagate like a wave, sinusoidal wave. Okay. So this is called one helical spin modulation. Okay. In the helical spin modulation, you remember always the propagation of this the direction of the spin is always perpendicular to the propagation direction. If my direction is this one, spins are moving like this, or helix is moving like this, my spin will always be perpendicular like this. Okay. So that is called helical magnetic modulation. And next one is cycloid spin modulation. Cycloid means this is a special kind of helicoid. In helicoid, the spin are always perpendicular to the propagation direction. Here, the spin is like a cycle. You have seen a cycle ring, na? So that spin also along the propagation direction, it moves like this. Okay, in the same plane. Okay. Okay. So this is the cycloid, and there is also all are actually observing materials. This is I'm not doing means like not theoretical concept or nothing. Though all are observing materials actually. So this is a conical spin modulation. Conical means it has some angle with the propagation direction. Okay, like a conics. Okay. So these are the spin modulation we know before going to Squamians. Before Squamian was discovered in 2008 actually. But it was proposed theoretically in 1982 something like 89 or something. But experimentally it was discovered something around 2008. Okay. So this is just Squamian. Now I am going to my next step is Squamian. Okay. This is a Squamian. You see there are bonds of spins. Okay, and all the spins behave collectively. Okay, so you can consider this is like a quasi-particle. Okay, it's not a fundamental particle but a quasi-particle. So there are thousands of spins. Let 100 spins. All the 100 spins will behave collectively. You cannot individually modify one of the spin. If you modify one of the spin, then all the spin will be modified. Okay, so this is the Squamian. You see a little bit see here. This is actually I have shown you. This is a cycloid spin. The slide before. Okay. The cycloid. This was a cycloid. Okay. This Squamian, if you take one of the this direction, one of the direction, cross-sectional direction, the spins actually nothing if they move like a cycloid. Okay. Or some people are called like a 360 degree domain walls. Domain walls, you know, in each magnetic domain there will be a domain wall. Okay. So this is like a cycloid, and this is like a vortex-like object. Why vortex? You know, superconductor. There are like in type 2 superconductor. There are like vortices. Okay, normal superconductor and normal matter and superconductor both. Okay, so this is like a similar kind of vortex state, but here with made up like spins only, magnetic spin. Okay, magnetic moments. So this is interpreted as localized spin state with particle-like property. And the most important thing here, they are topologically stable. Topologically stable, I'll just give you one example of that. That means you cannot break it. If you want to break it, means it will completely disappear. Either it is 1 or 0. Like that we need in our data storage. Either there will be Squamian, 1 state, or if not there, or 0 state. But you cannot deform to some other why I am telling, I will go in the next slide, I will tell you. And when this is there, it is topologically stable, it is always defined by a winding number. Okay, so in mathematics, topology is a very large subject actually. If you go to mathematics, topology, that they have a subject named topology. Okay, so means there it is called Chern number or winding number. Okay, when it is like a topological stable means they are defined by a winding number. Okay, forget about this term. So I just want to say what is topological stable. Okay, now you see this is a computer without this handle. Okay. I can continuously deform to this like oval shape or like a rugby ball. Okay, I cannot deform this one to this one. Never. I cannot do like anyway without breaking this topological property. I can deform anyway, but then I have to other shape. But then I have to break the topological property. If I can without deforming it, means like I can go only from this shape to this shape. Similarly, if I have a coffee mug, then I can go to a donut only. I cannot go coffee mug. I cannot go to this oval shape. Okay. Similarly, if I have a coffee mug which is like goes like open, I can go to this kind of shape. So these two objects are topologically same actually. So they both are defined by a same topological Chern number. Okay. Similarly, our fermium, in magnetism, this winding number is defined by this is like this. Okay. So this n is like unimagnetism vector. Okay. So depending upon the winding number, so it can have like this fermium 1 particle means it will have like winding number 1 or 0, 1 plus or minus 1. There is a very nice video, but it is not coming. So what do we mean by winding number 1? Just I wanted to show you that video actually. Okay, so you see, I take this two-dimensional spin, then I can wrap into a like sphere. Okay, two-dimensional spin I take that shape, then I can wrap into a sphere only once. You understand? I take that two-dimensional spin. Like this one, and I take a sphere, spherical shape, any spherical shape, then I can wrap the sphere only once, not twice or thrice. So that is you will give the winding number 1. Okay, if I can wrap twice or thrice, then winding number will change to 2 or 3 accordingly. And these are the different kinds of fermions. Like in this fermion category, there are many fermion exist. One, this is called Bloch's fermion. The name comes from this, Bloch type domain wall, Neal type domain wall. I think little bit in magnetism. Okay, this is their first year or what?
First year, second year.
Second year people should most have heard about. National. Okay, so you will have heard about this. What is Bloch domain wall? What is Neal domain wall? Neal domain is nothing but a spin cycloid. Bloch domain is nothing but a spin helicoid. I have shown this helicoid, cycloid, all this thing. So it means like according to that name, so fermions are like you can get different kinds of fermion, Bloch's fermion and Neal's fermion. Before I started work in this field, actually Bloch's fermion and Neal's fermion were already discovered. And when I started in the material where means like this is an anti fermion. This anti fermion means in the same fermion we can get both Bloch wall and Neal wall. Okay. And there are actually different kind of other fermions with winding number 0, and this is called merons which have winding number half. And if it is non-integer, it is not topological stable. These merons are not topological stable. It can be deformed to any shape. Okay. Why we are interested in fermion? Okay. So before the discovery of GMR, only we had this magnetic hard disks. Okay, nothing else. Magnetic related to data storage means magnetic hard disks. That this rotating thing. So this discovery of jam magnetic resistance, which is actually gave a new direction to the spintronics. What is GMR? So GMR means you take a material, okay, you design it properly. So it like this is plotted actually resistance versus magnetic field. At zero magnetic field, you have a very large resistance. You apply a little bit magnetic field, your resistance become like almost zero, almost not zero because zero is only superconductor. So you become very less. Okay. So this was discovered actually in the 1998 and 1999. Actually, in fact, Peter Gunbrock, who actually submitted this paper first in Physical Review B, before like Albert Feld, but this paper was published first. That's why this came first. And so these two gentlemen got Nobel Prize in 2007 for this discovery, because this was very important. Because what happened now in the magnetic read head or writing head, so if you have like a domain, like these are magnetic hard disks, all are domain based. Okay, if you have a domain which is like spins are like this or like this, depending upon your magnetic resistance can change. It can very nicely read your magnetic. Actually, before that, reading was not so nice. Okay, your tape recorder, all this reading is very important. But after this, so everywhere it is like for reading and writing, only this technology is being used. Okay. However, this cannot be implemented in the data storage till now, not. Okay. Now in 2007, Stuart Perkin. How many of you have heard about Stuart Perkin? He is a very big name in spintronics. Okay. So he proposed a new kind of memory device where you take a magnetic nanowires, okay, and you pass a spin polarized current here, okay. Then what will happen? What you see red and blue, these are differently aligned domains, okay. Now, so in between domains there is a domain wall. In the domain wall, spins are non-collinear. So when you pass a spin polarized current, what will happen? So the domain walls will move inside this nanowire, okay. When the domain walls will move, so you place a reading device here. So if the domain wall is there, let it count as 1. If not there, it will count as 0. So then, if it is a 3-dimensional device instead of 2-dimensional magnetic hard disk, then what you see, you can store much dense data. This is how the domain wall thing works. So it will give a spin torque to this non-collinear spin. Then the domain wall will move inside this magnetic nanowire. However, the current density we need to move this domain wall is really very high. Okay. So then when the fermions were discovered and people found that fermion can be easily move inside less current density in comparison to domain wall, and most important thing is they are topologically stable. They cannot be destroyed easily. So, and people have shown actually here how you can generate fermion. So you can see this is experimental, all experimental. So here, so you have domain one. This is like a stripe domains, and then you pass a spin current here, spin polarized current, and then you see they are breaking into some dot magnetic nanocurrent dots. Okay, so those are nothing but fermions actually. Okay. So people have demonstrated that they can easily pass through the they can move in a magnetic nanowire. Okay. So now a little bit go to how to the physics, how we stabilize fermions. You know, in any magnetic material expense, we have always this Heisenberg extents. Maybe next semester will come. Okay. So you have two spin. Okay. So they can directly overlap each other, okay, and there are indirect interaction also, many exchange interaction we will go through next semester. So this is called Heisenberg exchange interaction. In any magnetic material, whether ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic, you have this interaction everywhere, okay. In addition, let's consider the last two terms. Zeeman energy, you know how the spins will align with the magnetic field, that you know from the class after 12 I think. And then anisotropy energy. Anisotropy energy also comes from the crystallography, how the crystallography orientation. Okay. So that's all. So these three terms will be always there actually. In fact, in all materials you will have more or less this first and last two terms will be always there. The medial term which is written Zylsky-Moria interaction, this is a special interaction. And this doesn't come in all crystals. Only for a particular crystal with a particular crystal point, crystal point groups, all these things you must have read already. Crystal symmetry, okay, point group symmetry, I think they have not read all these things, okay. So if your crystal has that particular point group and symmetry, then only this interaction can come. If it is magnetic, okay, then only this Dij, this can come. And this is called asymmetric interaction. This is not symmetry, by the way. And this interaction is very important to get collinear material. Like here I have little bit shown in one slide. So how this the Jalasinski-Murray interaction comes. So first of all, the material with non-zero DM like Jalasinski-Murray interaction is sort of large spin orbit coupling. Okay, that also I think you will. But spin orbit coupling I think you must have already read. Broken inversion symmetry. That crystal should not have any inversion symmetry. Inversion symmetry, you know, you take a crystal, you on the middle when you put a mirror plane. If you can mirror all the atoms from the below to above, then it has inversion symmetry. If you put this mirror plane and whatever the atoms here and on the lower portion cannot be repeated on the upper, so it has no inversion symmetry. So for this Jalasinski-Murray interaction, you need broken inversion symmetry. It should not have inversion symmetry. Okay. And finally, the ratio between this Heisenberg exchange and the Jalasinski-Murray interaction give how big will be the helix. I told from the beginning helix. How large should be the helix? This ratio between these two interactions will give how large should be the helix. And depending upon the crystal orientation, crystal symmetry, you can have this D in a different kind of a D. And if you D is here, if you D is perpendicular to this line joining two spins, then you will get a cycloid kind of helix. Okay, cycloid kind of spin motion. If it D is parallel to this line joining spin I and spin Z, and then we should get parallel. Means this is the helix. And so, okay, it will give you when it was discovered. It was discovered in 2009 experimentally, and so since it was a discovery, it came in science. Okay, and then subsequently, the group from in Kapura group, in Japan, they used Lorentz transmission electron microscope. This was indirect. This was done in neutron diffraction. Okay, neutron diffraction is always indirect. Okay, but here that's a reciprocal thing. Neutron diffraction, what you see is a reciprocal space. Okay, and this image, what you see, this is the real space image. Real space image means there is a magnetic particle image you see in your eye. In your eye, you cannot see in nanometer, but we see in transmission electron microscopy. Okay. TEM. So this is a picture in special TEM, not normal TEM, so some kind of special TEM. Right? Generally we see this kind of black dot or white dot, and we do some simulation kind of thing to make it this direction of this field. Okay, so that was the Bloch's fermion, and this was the Antis fermion that I started working in this field. So this was what is the difference between Antis fermion and Bloch's fermion? You can see that Antis fermion we have two black, two white, so this is little bit okay. So let's don't go through. Now means these are those fermion what I showed there. So always we need that Jalasinski-Murray interaction. But can we get fermion without Jalasinski-Murray interaction? You can ask that one. There are certain materials where this computation between this our universal anisotropy, as I told, it will be there depending upon the crystal structure, and the magnetostatic, this static energy, that is dipolar energy. Dipolar energy name you must have heard, okay, or magnetostatic energy. The computation between these two give us fermion. What does it do? This magnetic anisotropy, this one. This always try to align the spin along the z direction, okay, like out of plane. If you take a thin film, it will always try to align the spin perpendicular. Spin direction must be perpendicular to the thin film plane. And this interaction, this always what it tries to do. This always try to align in the plane. Okay. So when you have a computation between these two interactions, then also you can get fermion. And I am going to show what some a very recent study we did in Niger. In one of this particular manganese for gallium-2 team. And in fact, when Subhendu was there, Subhendu is sitting here, he was working sometime in Niger. He actually first prepared this sample there, then he left actually. And one of my PhD students is working on this field. So this has actually hexagonal kind of crystal structure. And you see, this is the empty core again. Maybe national study will read this M versus T. Okay, So it has a ordering something around 325 Kelvin. So this is for the DC. Nothing happened, huh? Everything is fine. Okay. So it has a ordering temperature something around 320 Kelvin. And then we did some preliminary magnetic measurements so that this SC susceptibility. Maybe you know susceptibility measurement, something like that. Maybe Subhendu can a little bit explain more. So in this, from the preliminary measurement, we get some kind of hump kind of thing which you don't see actually with these knives. So you see some kind of hump, okay? And we know that there is something, there is some extra thing in this material. So then we study in this Lorentz TM. What is Lorentz TM? I will give little bit of like flavor. You know our normal TM or not? Any of you know normal TM, transmission electron microscopy? Okay. Okay. In the transmission electron microscopy, it is a microscopy where we use electron for the focus. Imaging. Instead of like X-ray, you use X-ray. Okay, some other thing. But here we use electrons. Okay, beam of electrons. And then this beam of electrons, they are focused by electromagnetic lens. Okay, focusing means we have to do in this instrument. There are large electromagnet for the focusing. Okay, those are called electromagnetic lens. And those actually magnetic field due to those lens, they convert the electron beam or diverse, whatever like in some point it will be diverse. They really convert the electron beam. Okay. Now our sample always when we do this TM, you know mostly used for the structural characterization. Okay. When you put this structural characterization, we do not have to worry about magnetism. Okay. We have to put the sample in this between these two electromagnetic, which is the lens, electromagnetic lens. Okay. Now you imagine you are putting a magnetic sample in a like large magnetic field. What will happen? All this field will align along the field direction. Then we can, if you have a squadron on anything, can you study? No. So for that study, you have to remove this. We have to switch off this magnetic field. And if we switch off, then how can we convert the electron beam? How can we focus the electron beam? For the focusing purpose, we put a very small electromagnet again below the sample space. And this is not in every TM. We have to, if we need that one, we have to design accordingly. When we buy the TM, we have to tell the company that we need this one. They can put that one. Okay. Then what you do when you study this magnetic thing, you switch off this magnet. This is called the objective lens. You switch off the objective lens. Instead, you use another objective mini lens for the focusing purpose. Okay, and that is called the Lorentz. And why it is called Lorentz, by the way? Lorentz lens. Okay, is there is Lorentz force you know or not? Lorentz force you know. So now in this Lorentz transmission electron microscopy, we can image if the spin is like on the plane. If spin is parallel to perpendicular to the plane of the sample, you cannot image it. Now you can say why? Because now electrons are coming like this. Okay. The Lorentz force, you know what is the Lorentz force? For the Lorentz force, what should be direction between the electron motion direction and what magnetic field? Should be perpendicular. Okay, so that's why the magnetic, where the spins which are like in the plane, which are lying in the plane, they can give a magnetic field to this electron, and then the electron can deflect. If it is parallel, then there will be no force, and that from that point only they call it Lorentz lens. Okay. Okay, so this is a magnetic schematic of a magnetic sample. So you have domains of differently oriented domains, and you have domain walls. And if you study this Lorentz lens, you can get in the domain walls. So depending upon the direction of the domain, spin direction, so you can get black and white lines exactly at the domain. Actually, you cannot see the domain, but you can see the domain walls. Okay. And this is the schematic, and this is the real space. Okay, this image people who are using by the way Lorentz TM for the imaging of domain walls. Okay, so this is you can see these are the domain walls. Okay, these lines are domain walls. Then so you take the sample. So to study in the TM, so the sample should be something around 100 nanometer thick. Otherwise, electron cannot pass through the sample. This is a transmission electron microscope. Transmission means electron should transmit through the sample. Okay. And And these are you see what you dots you see, and this is the real atoms in your sample. You can see in the TM. Okay. And we see the rejection by like diffraction like thing. Now this is the normal TM. Now this is the Lorentz TM. In the Lorentz TM, if it is in focus, okay, this is a little bit difficult term. I have not put also picture. Then we should not see any magnetic contrast. But a little bit we do because this is in focus. I should have put some like schematic. Anyway, if you do the little bit of like out of focus, okay. So you see some red stripes are coming in this sample. Okay, and these stripes is nothing but some like the motion of the helix. Okay. Now what you do? This is the zero magnetic field. Now again you switch on this like objective lens. Okay, the wire sample is there. And slowly increase the current in the objective lens. You can control that. Okay. Depending upon the current, like electromagnetic, you flow current and you get magnetic field. Na? Depending upon the current, you can get a little bit of whatever magnetic field you need, and you give that magnetic field because this conveyance only comes with magnetic field. Okay. And now you see initially you had these stripes. Okay. Now you become like some kind of bubbles. Okay. These are the magnetic bubbles. And you apply, this is done at 100 Kelvin. So in the TM also you can put a liquid nitrogen holder, you can pull down the sample, you can do all this thing. Okay. And then, so like 100K, this is the 100K, this is 200K, this is 250K. So there are some actually, if you see this, whatever in the box, they are different from this here. And there was actually big debate whether these are fermions or bubbles. But there are also these fermions are a little bit like maybe this is not in MSc standard. So you will heard about this magnetic bubbles. Okay, magnetic bubbles exist always. So whether these are fermions or bubbles. Okay, and so there was some people say it is like some people say these are not bifermion. Bifermion means the topological number 2. So now this was like means big like debate, and we did some systematical study to say these are not bifermion, these are actually bubbles. Only you can get fermion in some particular condition of the magnetic field. Okay. Here actually, so what we did, so in this case, so in the TM, what we have to do is like to take image. Okay, 5 minutes I will finish. We have a little bit tilt the sample. When we tilt, let we are applying a magnetic field like this. Okay, your sample is like this. Now if you tilt like this, what will happen? So that some component of the magnetic field which was initially out of plane, it will also be in plane. Okay, that in plane magnetic field actually we did also some simulation that actually stabilized this kind of bubbles. Now, actually this image is so dark you cannot see anything. But when we actually make that tilting zero, which is really difficult to do at low temperature, but around 250 to do that, we get only this kind of only. This, you see this, what is this like? This image is different than this image. Okay, and these are actually fermions, but this is bubbles. Bubbles mean it has no topological number. It is topological number is 0. Okay, they are topological not stable. We did some actually real systematic to clear this sample in different direction. We show that bubble like in-plane magnetic field also changes according to our spin of the fermion changes according to our in-plane magnetic field. So we did some simulation and we saw that very systematically whatever people were telling that is bifermion, it is not bifermion, it is actually magnetic bubbles. Okay, maybe I will finish the class. Okay, so this is phase diagram. So means when you do something, always we draw a phase diagram. Okay, so where we can see this coordinates all this thing. Okay, so this is the summary of so we have observed this near room temperature, which is important. And we have also done the systematic switching between topological fermion and bubbles, and we have done some simulation to support our experimental results. With this, I would like to thank you. Okay, if there is no questions, that's fine. Thank you for explaining. So neither to neither to
Okay. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.